Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel and thank you so much for joining me this week. So this week I'm going to be talking about the problem with ranking. It's an approach that a lot of schools use in their reporting, and so I'm going to be discussing the problems that I feel and my personal opinion about ranking. So if you're interested in hearing my thoughts, then please keep on watching. Okay, so a lot of schools I know around the world actually adopt ranking, which means that you're ranking students with each other. And I was just talking to a friend of mine who's was describing to me the report cards of their children. And they said that every time they get their report card back from the school, there's a ranking where their child is either second out of 32 or third out of 32. And my question that I posed to my friend was, what about that 32nd child or the 30th child? And I even said, what about the first child, the child that thinks that they're in first or second position? And imagine the pressure and the anxiety on that child to actually stay in that position. And then I've spoken to lots of teachers and educators who grew up with the ranking and they were kind of in the middle of their class. And they said that because they knew that they were always going to be in the middle of the class, they didn't want to try, because even if they tried, they'd still stay in the middle. It actually didn't matter. So I think it can be really harmful and damaging to use ranking in student learning in schools. And I'm proposing that we really try to adopt a criterion-referenced approach, not a norm distribution, where a norm distribution is actually comparing students with each other. And by default, in a normal distribution, someone's got to be at the bottom, someone's got to fail in order for someone to succeed and be at the top. And I think that's just so unfair. It is absolutely ridiculous that we are giving this message to children that if you're at the bottom of the class, you're going to stay at the bottom of the class, despite the fact if you have actually individually experienced growth in your learning journey. Maybe you have made so much progress individually in terms of your reading, your writing, your mathematics, your science, but because you're last in the school or in the class, you're going to stay last. So what motivation or incentive is that for a child to actually want to grow and learn? I always like to encourage a criterion-referenced approach where we're looking at a set of standards, a set of descriptors that students have to actually meet in order to be able to progress in their learning journey. And it's about individual growth. So let me give you an analogy. Let's say if we had a doctor, a lawyer, and a teacher, and they were doing, their exams or creating whatever project they had to, and they were given a rank within their cohort for their project or their exam. And let's say that they came first, but in the actual exam, they got 20%. So they know 20% of law, or they know 20% of medicine, or they know 20% of the subject knowledge area in teaching. Now, I wouldn't want to go and see that lawyer or that teacher or that doctor, because I know that they only know 20%, even though they were at the top of the class. So it's so important that we compare students against a set of criteria. I want to go to the teacher, the lawyer, the doctor that got 85% or 90% or knows all of their material and not where they were in the class. Now, I work for different educational institutions, and one of the courses that I teach is a project-based module, and we have a set of criteria and descriptors that we want students to be able to follow when they're creating their artifacts. So it's success criteria so that students know exactly what they need to do to get an A or a B. Now, one year, in fact, it was last year, I got questioned about why I gave so many A's and B's out to my class. And I had to explain that I was actually looking at a set of criteria and expectations for my students, and they had met them. I didn't use a normal distribution for their ranking and for their position in the class, because that meant that I would have had to give some A's and some D's and the majority C's, which I didn't want to do. I wanted students to look at the expectations of what the success criteria outline and then to fulfill that. And the educational institution was quite happy with that. So I was really happy too. So I just want to emphasize the importance of focusing on individual student growth. And, it's up to us as teachers to provide that beautiful learning environment to allow each individual to flourish and to grow wherever they are starting from, wherever their prior knowledge is, whatever their background or confidence level is, and to be able to nurture and foster a love for learning in an intrinsic way, not using ranking to encourage that extrinsic motivation, but to nurture a love for learning for the sake of learning without our students so that they are intrinsically motivated, so that they want to grow as an individual and they're not comparing themselves with other people in the class. So I feel pretty strongly about this. I've had so many conversations with different educators around the world. And, sometimes institutions work within a system where it's just ranked, right? They're working within state systems or, government systems where there's ranking. But there are ways that we can get around this. We can still nurture a love for learning within our students. We don't have to rank when we're collecting evidence of student learning, which informs students of their progress and informs us where we need to modify and adapt our instruction. I think we can still really try to report on individual growth, and let's try and get rid of the ranking. So if you are the decision maker in the school, can you make that decision to throw the ranking out the window and focus on individual growth? So thank you so much for joining me this week. I got on my soapbox for a little while because I just want to encourage students to be in the best learning environment so that they can thrive and flourish. I would love to hear your comments. Please put some comments in the section below, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.